Delegate Ingram, who is here, who has to go, I know he has to go upstairs to chair committee, then he's going to be back on his other brochure bill.
This is a good bill.
But this is a good bill. This is not your brochure bill.
Yeah. House Bill 1166, and it's a substitute, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on just a minute. We'll get the substitute before us. Do I have a motion that we adopt the substitute?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adopting the substitute, say aye. Opposed? All right, Delegate Ingram, the substitute 1166 is before us.
I'm going to let someone else explain the substitute. It's a very simple bill. It should fly right on through in a matter of just a few minutes. But I don't call
So it's a simple bill?
Yes. You know how that.
Delegate Bill likes to hear that. It's a simple bill.
Anyway, and it changes that the substitute is what the Bureau did.
Okay. Yes, sir, just tell us your name and then explain the bill.
Good afternoon, my name is Richard Dunleavy. I am with Deputy General Counsel with AIG Insurance. To thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today concerning House Bill 1166, which I agree I think is a good bill, and I think a relatively simple bill, and I'll try to speak to it without overcomplicating it. House Bill 1166 has to deal with blanket group accident insurance policies, which are supplemental health insurance policies, sometimes sold through employers, but more often, and what we're here to speak to today, are accident policies sold that are purchased by other types of groups. The way Virginia law is currently structured, the law speaks to group policies, it does not speak specifically to blanket policies. Group policies are, and the enumerated classes in the statute have to deal with employer-type policies and other similar types of policies. So if you are an employee and you are purchasing your benefits every year, you have an opportunity to buy coverage on an annual basis. And the basic idea there is that you can get better rates and perhaps better coverage on an annual basis than you would potentially on an individual basis. Blanket coverage is really a different type of coverage, and we believe should, we hope would be recognized separately in Virginia law as it is in most other jurisdictions. Blanket insurance is typically purchased by organizations.
You said it's recognized in like 44 other.
44 other states have a structure that is almost exactly on line with the structure that House Bill 1166 would create in Virginia. And blanket policies are typically purchased by organizations. They provide coverage to participants in the activities.
Sports team, camp.
Sports teams, the Boy Scouts of America, Little League Baseball. So it provides benefits to the participants in those activities, and so it really has a dual benefit. It allows the organizations to sponsor activities, knowing that they are providing this coverage for the participants. It also provides that coverage for participants, typically who may not even know they have the coverage until something happens, and then they have the benefit of having coverage for an accident associated with a particular activity.
All right, you have a motion?
Move the report.
Have a motion and a second. Anybody wish to be heard on, otherwise on 1166? Yes, sir. Mr. Bradshaw.
Yes, Bob Bradshaw with the Independent Insurance Agents of Virginia. It's not that we oppose the bill. In fact, we think it's pretty meaningful. The only thing we're confused about, and we've talked to the patrons about this, is you go through, you explain what a blanket policy is, and then you outline a Christmas tree, basically 7 and 8, which is numeral D. Numerals 1 through 14. Although 14 is kind of the catch-all. If you think of something else, you can go to the Bureau. So it seems like 14 is really the key one. Any sort of blanket policy you want to create, take it to the Bureau. We hope if we think of a different idea that's not looked at more strenuously than, say, 1 through 13. It just seems like an odd
But it would still,
Christmas tree.
If I read it right, Mr. Bradshaw, it would still have to meet the definition of blanket insurance
Correct.
on lines 151 through 155, I believe.
Right. It just seems like the real key is number 14. Here's what blanket policy is, go through the Bureau, and that frankly, 1 through 13 didn't need it, but again, it's an odd sort of a Christmas tree type thing. If it's in there, it doesn't break my heart. If it's not in there, it kind of makes it, in our opinion, more clear. But again, I'm not meaning any harm to just find the Christmas tree.
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say that that was the language, I think, that the Bureau approved.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ginger Stanley on behalf of the Virginia Press Association, and we also have no position on the bill. However, on the new language, line number 183, 184, it says a policy or contract issued to a newspaper or other publisher which shall be deemed the policyholder covering its carriers. Newspapers do not cover their carriers. In fact, they're independent contractors, and any place where you might see a law linking newspaper publishers to newspaper carriers gives us heartburn, because that's not the relationship that they have, and we would never want carriers to use this as a way to make newspaper publishers cover them. So we would just respectfully ask that those two lines be deleted.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question of
Here.
the gentleman.
The gentleman?
The gentleman.
Okay.
AIG.
Yes, sir. AIG. Yes, sir. He's got a question down here.
Yeah, right here. Just, I'm not opposed to the bill. I just want to know what lines 185 to 187 mean, if you can do that. Just tell me what you have in mind, because I thought you could get coverage for a restaurant or motel or anybody under a regular, if you call your carrier independent or anybody, you can get that. Can't you
Talking
all-
about the restaurant, the hotel, that.
Well, again, the way that blanket coverage is structured, the entity buys the coverage for the benefit of people that would come in. So in this case, a restaurant, hotel, resort innkeeper would buy the coverage, and individuals that would come on your premises, if they were to have an accident, would then have the benefit of the coverage. The individuals would purchase the coverage, and obviously the restaurant, hotel wouldn't be required to buy the coverage. But if they did buy the coverage, then they would have some coverage to provide to individuals that would come onto their premises that were injured. Typically, it's going to cover health, any health-related, injury-related health costs, and make the individual whole for any accident that would occur on the premises.
Mr. Chairman, for the question.
Yes.
Suppose I had a law office and I had a policy of insurance in my law office that allows me to cover everybody coming in to the office. So if they come onto the premises and they trip over the curb or something and they're covered, how is that different from what you're talking about?
Well, really, the difference is there is no, this is a no-fault type benefit. Typically, I think I assume you're referring to a liability type coverage where you have a premises
Yes.
liability. Typically, there's got to be some, in those sorts of policies, there has to be some sort of fault. You would have to have the, a wet floor or some other, something that your
Like going
premises,
into
somebody would
grocery
point
store.
to.
Yeah,
Here,
I
if you come on the premises and you fall, or it's your fault, it's an accident, you're covered. And so it's a no-fault type of coverage to that.
Let me ask you, if it's no fault, that means there's no contributory negligence? Is that what you're saying?
For this coverage, yes. And this, it's not going to, so it would be, and it typically is going to cover your health costs. So somebody falls down and twists their ankle, they'll provide benefits for that.
Mr. Chairman, another question. Even though the state doesn't have, I don't know what kind, we're one of 3 states or 4 states that have contributory negligence. So you're saying that this policy, if I walk in and I trip and fall on my own feet, I'm covered?
possibility.
If there's an accident, so
Yeah.
I think maybe a better example would be another patron runs into you. It's not the hotel's fault or the restaurant's fault, but you're injured in an accident on their premises. Presumably you could try to hold that person liable, but you would be covered for your health benefits because it happened on the premises.
I don't think, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I hate to keep getting deeper and deeper in this, but if somebody hits me in the parking lot of a hotel, it's the person that hit me that's liable. It's not the hotel unless there's some problem with the hotel. It's a defect in the pavement or something of that nature. To have fault on the part of the hotel, I have to show fault. And when I show fault, I got to show that this is approximate cause and this is the injury. I don't understand. Just, if you think it's all right, I guess it's all right.
Doug, just if this would assuage your concerns, these types of policies, this is really not a change in the law or in the market. These types of policies are very commonly available currently. This is really just codifying what are recognized blanket groups that are written in Virginia all the time and are written across the country. They're just written under a different a different statutory approach. And this is really just codifying what is out there in the market currently.
Right. Delegate the posse.
Sir, do you have any problem with striking, with what the lady said from the newspapers and just striking lines 183 and 184?
Yeah, but if I could I would like to explain how that would operate. And as I mentioned, I was telling you earlier, that was actually one of the first blanket type coverages was for newspaper release, basically. It was boys back then. And the idea was just they are independent contractors and they could get injured, so we'll provide a benefit in the event that they got injured on a paper route. So it is a coverage that is out there. I don't think removing it would prevent that coverage from being written. That coverage would then have to be written under the discretionary authority that's otherwise in the statute. But it does not impose any requirement on a newspaper to buy any sort of coverage. It does not imply that there's anything but an independent contractor relationship with the newspaper and the person delivering.
Thank you.
No, I just want to clarify, based on the exchange with Delegate Joanna, this doesn't really have anything to do with liability. It just says you can have an insurance policy to cover a group of people that otherwise couldn't be covered. Like if you have a Boy Scout troop and you want to buy accident or illness insurance so that if something, lightning strikes the Boy Scout Jamboree, that is covered by the insurance policy, but it has nothing to do with liability, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that we've heard from the State Corporation Commission. I expect you probably are wanting to bring them up at some point because I would like to hear their assessment of it. And I apologize, I was in the sidebar at the beginning of the presentation. So if we could bring up the State Corporation Commission, I'd be interested to hear what the Bureau might say.
Yeah, I think they work some on this piece of legislation.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Alphelia Battle, and I'm with the Bureau of Insurance, the Deputy Commissioner.
And I think Delegate Ware would like to know if your all's thoughts on the bill.
Okay, we worked with the patrons on the bill, and we provided them with language in subsections A and B and C. And it was our opinion at the time that we were working with them that the provisions of subsection D we did not feel that they were necessary because of the definition of discretionary group is the group section of our title. But they brought it to our attention that in several other states, the blanket insurance coverage bill is written in the manner that this bill is written, which enumerates different groups. But this particular bill does list some groups that are not in some of the other bills in other states.
So you, in other words, what you said is you consulted with you on A, B, and C. But
I'm sorry. They consulted with us on the entire bill, but when we were looking at the bill, we had suggested the deletion of D, but they felt that this was needed based on what they currently, the laws in several other states.
And having heard we've had several people approach who said, I don't oppose your bill, but, and each of the buts have related to Section D. Would it be better to have Section D as a generalized statement in your judgment, or this listing that includes some from other states and some that, as you suggest, are unique to this Virginia proposal?
Well, in my opinion, a generalized statement in subsection D, because we have general discretion as far as groups are concerned. And there may be some, the way that groups are defined currently, I think we do have the discretion to determine, which groups are determined to be eligible.
I thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Joanna.
you know, when you talk about newspapers, the carriers are independent, non-employees, contractors, which means that if I'm going, and I'm not that clear on this part, but, and that's why I'm asking the question. If I'm XYZ newspaper and I get a policy to cover the carriers, what kind of policy is that?
Well, it's a blanket accident policy, so it doesn't change the relationship as they remain independent contractors, but it does provide benefits to them in the event that they have an accident while they're carrying out their duties around delivering newspapers.
Further questions, Chairman? Would that mean it covers their medical bills and pain and suffering?
It's primarily, most of the coverage is primarily medical bills. Some policies will have provisions that do specific types of losses that they will pay for. Some policies may have a disability income benefit.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman, just a final question. That means that this policy will be similar to a med pay policy in an automobile? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's a reasonable, I think that's a reasonable analogy.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me ask this gentleman, would your company object to the collapsing of D into one more general statement rather than specificity? Just picked up a lot of staff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's actually the main reason that we're here, hoping that you'll pass the bill. That list is consistent with.
Mr. Chairman, if I might. Yeah. You're certainly welcome to roll the dice if you'd like to today, or we could continue the conversation. I mean, it's your bill. Do with it as you see, but I think you could see some of the questions that have been raised.
Yeah, no, I understand. If I could just briefly address why we think that it's necessary and appropriate. When we talk about the other states, there is this sort of approach where you have a list so that you do have certainty in the insurance market as to what sort of coverages you can provide. Most of the states have a similar sort of catch-all that gives the departments discretion to recognize other groups. A lot of these policies are sold to large national organizations. So an organization like Boy Scouts of America will facilitate purchase of coverage across the United States for each of the member entities. So a carrier offering that sort of coverage will know in Virginia they can offer that sort of coverage without having to go to the department to get approval of a specific group or a specific type of group, and that follows for the rest of those sorts of groups. There's also, and so it does give you that level of certainty.
Yes, I understand that. Delegate Farrell.
Move the penny question, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Question, shall we, the question is, move the penny question. All those in favor of moving the penny question say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the question is, report, House Bill 1166, members vote electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1166, report 7263. Thank you. Delegate Ingram. You go, and he was there. We got a few housekeeping measures to take care of. We had subcommittee, Delegate Hugo, you had subcommittee 2. And I believe House Bill 338 was recommended to carry over under Rule 22.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the bill prohibits SCC from contracting or entering into a memorandum of understanding of the federal DHH services in order to carry out its plan management functions with respect to health insurance. We thought it was an interesting bill, had a lot of merit. There might have been some more debate, and the recommendation of the subcommittee was to carry over under Rule 22.
So you so moved.
So
Second. All those in favor of carrying over pursuant to Rule 22 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. House Bill 368, Delegate Hugo.
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 368 from Delegate Head would establish requirements upon health insurance carriers and corporations operating optometric or vision care services plans regarding health plans that provide coverage for vision care services or healthcare services and materials related to eye care. There was an amendment in nature substitute. The amendment in nature substitute was adopted. After that, it was recommended, the recommendation subcommittee to carry over under Rule 22. I move the adoption of the committee substitute.
All right, all those in favor of the adoption of the committee subcommittee substitute say aye. Aye. Opposed?
And Mr. Chairman, with that, I move that the bill be carried over under Rule 22.
Second.
All those in favor of carrying over pursuant to Rule 22 say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, Delegate Hugo, House Bill 443 was
Recommend, Mr. Chairman, at the request of the patron was to strike the bill. So
Second.
have a motion to strike House Bill 443 with request of the patron. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Delegate Hugo 543.
Chairman, House Bill 543 from Delegate Philippine would establish a procedure for having credit freeze placed on credit report persons under the age of 16 or incapacitated.
I believe we had a
Amendment in nature, there was an amendment in nature substitute. I move these options.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. All those in favor of adopting the substitute say aye. Aye. All right, and all those opposed?
And Mr. Chairman, with that, after a full and vigorous debate, it's a recommendation.
Y'all have a full hearing at the subcommittee and
Recommendation, after a full hearing, recommendation of the subcommittee to report, and I so move.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
take this by temporary.
Substitute motion.
Take this by temporary.
By temporary. Okay, all those in favor of taking it just by temporarily, we'll come back to it here in a few minutes. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, Delegate Hugo.
Mr. Chairman, the next bill was House Bill 1043 from our esteemed member Delegate Byron. This bill would require the exchange navigators to be registered with the State Corporation Commission starting September 1. There were no amendments. There was an equally good amendment from myself that I laid on the table. And it was a recommendation that the subcommittee to report Delvin Byron's amendment. It was unanimous, 9-0. That's so moved.
Second.
This would be registered through the State Corporation Commission, is that correct? I believe that's right. Okay. All right, no amendments?
No amendment.
All right, and y'all have had a hearing, pro and con?
Yes, sir.
All those in favor of voting to report House Bill 1043, vote on your electronic voting board. Clerk will close the roll. House Bill 1043 reports 20-0. Delegate Hugo, 1072.
Mr. Chairman, House Bill 1072 will prohibit a merchant from scanning the machine-readable zone of your individual ID cards, driver's license, DMV, and from storing or selling that information with certain exceptions. There was an amendment, and I'll move the adoption of the amendments.
It's okay if you could report the amendments, Frank?
Mr. Chairman, I have some copies for distribution.
Okay.
Just a second.
Hold on just a second. We'll wait on.
Mr. Chairman, just to explain the amendments, they were basically for check, basically make sure it was in compliance with Brand Leach Wiley, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and then there was rewording of one of the references pertaining to the.
Mr. Chairman, the first amendment is on page 1, line 27, after zone of strike and individuals, and insert a Department of Motor Vehicles issued, and the companion amendment number 2 on line 28, after license strike issued by the Department of Motor Vehicles. And then the third amendment on line 39, after law into the semicolon, and insert 2 subdivisions, 5 and 6. 5.
Better on your, that you on this sheet of paper.
Yes.
Better on this paper.
Yes.
All right, do I have a motion on those amendments? I so move. Second. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And delegates, you go.
Mr. Chairman, with the adoption of the amendments, it was the recommendation after a vigorous debate of the subcommittee to report 6-0.
Second. All right. Members wishing to vote on electronic voting. Clerk will list House Bill 1072 report with amendments 20-0. I believe, moving on, House Bill 1077, I have a motion that we strike that at the patron's request. 1077, Delegate Rush. A motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right. House Bill 370, Delegate Head.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 370 is a continuation of last year's bill brought by Delegate Watson for commercial reporting.
You Delegate Watson here today.
He is here today.
See you.
We had a lot of work done on this over the summer with the Small Business Commission and sought to correct some of the problems that were in it and address some of the concerns, and we're moving right along with that. However, there is now a lawsuit pending against one of the primary parties in this, and the outcome of that is very likely to either render this unnecessary or substantively change the direction that it needs to go. And so because of that, we'd like to request that the committee carry this over under Rule 22.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this bill be carried over to Rule 22.
Second.
All right, well, thank you, Delegate Head.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor of carrying over under Rule 22, House Bill 370, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you. You got House Bill 949. Oh, House Bill 1009, that we're just going to carry that over until when? Let's do Tuesday, February 4th. All right, House Bill 1009, Workforce Development Bill, Tuesday, 4th. We'll get, Delegate Hugo.
Mr. Chairman.
949.
Mr. Chairman, if I need to do it up here, this is House Bill 949. House Bill 949 creates a process for natural gas utilities to invest in upstream natural gas reserves and capture today's historically low gas prices.
I think there's a substitute.
For utilities. And I would move the adoption of the substitute.
Yes. All right, there's a motion to adopt a substitute. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, Delegate Hughes, sorry to interrupt that well-prepared speech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as I was saying, these investments are expected to yield a price discount for customers, reduce the price volatility, and increase supply risk. Additionally, this legislation codifies the existing SEC precedent that allows utilities to build intrastate pipelines through non-certified territory to bring additional gas supply for the benefit of tax ratepayers. The stakeholders have worked out the election that addresses, the language that addresses technical concerns of the SEC and other interested parties. And with the adoption of the substitute, I am unaware of any opposition to the legislation. Then I'm in trouble.
All right, House Bill 949. Anybody in the audience wish to be heard for or against House Bill 949? Delegate Rust.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just more of an edification for me than anything else. There's a term in here that I just simply don't understand. On line 32, decatherms, that's obviously a term of quality. I mean, not quality, but quantity.
You don't know what that is?
I'm probably the only one in the room that does not know what it means, but
We've got an expert.
Mr. Chairman, I've got obviously went to decatherm school, but I'm going to put it in layman terms. I'm going to let Mr. Kibble do that.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Jim Kibler with AGL Resources in Virginia Natural Gas. A decatherm is roughly 1 million cubic feet of natural gas. And it's the quantity that's typically used to transact business in buying capacity or buying gases.
So 1 decatherm is what?
Roughly 1 million cubic feet.
Hold on just a minute, Jim.
Jim,
Got another calculator out.
can I just ask a question? Many times when we refer things to State Corporation Commission for review, we give them a fair amount of latitude. How much discretion does this allow them on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being the most discretion, 1 being limited discretion.
The standard of review that's imposed by this bill is the traditional public interest standard with a slight modification. And the modification is that there's the poll star, the guiding principle behind this bill is to try to bring lower cost gas to consumers. So the commission will look at lower cost gas, the degree to which it does that, whether it reduces price volatility, whether it mitigates supply risk.
You have given me satisfaction. Thank you.
And I made a mistake. A decatherm is 1,000 cubic feet. I'm confusing an MCF.
Okay. I was going to let you go with it because I knew better, but
I was just checking on that. Thank you for your
we don't want to embarrass you, right? Okay. All right. Anybody else? Members have a motion and a second to pass to report 949 substitute. Anybody wishing to vote electronically? have reports 20 to 0.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
mine is not working.
That's up reports and 21 to 0. Yeah. Delegate Lopez, House Bill 798.
Good afternoon. 798 is the Self-Employment Assistance Program. We had it before the Small Business Commission, and we met with them twice over the course of the summer. Basically, participants in this voluntary program are provided with financial assistance equal to their unemployment insurance benefits while they receive important entrepreneurial training and resources to help launch their own business. In order to allow participants to devote full-time attention to creating new businesses that have the potential to create additional jobs, state work search requirements are waived. Participants can also keep whatever they earn from their new business venture. So basically, traditionally under UI, you have to be, an unemployed individual has to be actively seeking for a traditional job. These funds can only be used for personal use, and they're prohibited to be used for any other purposes like starting a new business. And only individuals who sort of desire to seek self-employment, who just desire to create their own jobs, maybe create new jobs for other people, are ineligible for UI insurance. Under this new program that was passed as part of the Middle Class Jobs Tax Relief Act in 2012, there's a federal program that allows states to proactively create a program that would allow entrepreneurs and small business owners who are unemployed, who are long-term unemployed, to, instead of using their unemployment insurance for personal use, but to create a new business. And I put this forward last year, and I put it here before that, because we were eligible for approximately $650,000 from the federal government to get this program started. It was passed by, and it was laid on the table, and it was also referred to the commission to discuss. I answered several questions from the commission over the summer, but I also came back this year with a modification. Let's test this out. We know through the requirements we have with the U.S. Department of Labor who the long-term unemployed are. If those individuals are open to it and eligible for it, they should be capped at 100 people. Let's see how the program works with 100 people. And we've also found that according to BDC, the program will be done through the BDC and through SBDCs around the country, around the Commonwealth.
Have you talked to the BDC? How would they set this up?
It would be up to them to set it up, but there is a series of standards that the U.S. Department of Labor has that can be easily accessed and used as a model.
Has this been done in other states?
Yeah, several other states, including I think Mississippi, New York, New Jersey, Maine, Delaware, other states where this has been a successful program. It's also created in other states where this has gone forward, the individuals who participate in the program are more likely to have full-time jobs, more likely to create more jobs, and more likely to have higher net worth as well.
What effect would it have on the fund, the unemployment?
It would have actually no impact on the fund because the individuals who are eligible for this program are already eligible for unemployment insurance, and that according to the legislation, it's required to have a neutral impact on the UI trust fund.
Anybody else have any questions? Delegate Miller?
Mr. Chairman, a question for the delegate. So I hadn't had a chance to read all the language. I have a problem. I apologize to Delegate Lopez. So this would be 100 unemployed individuals across the Commonwealth.
Right. Capped at 100.
Is there guidelines on what type of businesses? Or
No, it can be any kind of business. Right now, we have around 600,000 microenterprises in Virginia. They make up around 86% of the businesses in the Commonwealth. The amount of money that these individuals will be able to get between $10,000 and $13,000 over the 26-week period of an unemployment insurance period, that's startup capital for an innovative entrepreneur to create their own business as opposed to trying to find a new job.
So what prevents them from doing this now?
Right now, the regulations for UI are that you have to be in the active, full-time pursuit of finding a traditional job. You cannot be in the active, full-time pursuit of creating your own new job and your own small business. This is a great way of empowering small business people in the Commonwealth. And Time Magazine actually said when this was put forward as part of the federal bill, that it was the hidden gem in the overall bill.
Thank you, I'm not worried about what Tom Megan said, but
That's obvious.
what about, so this could just be as
He's
simple
got a
as...
description to it, we know.
Yeah.
I got that covered, I read it, so you don't have to explain that to me. So this could be as simple as a real estate agent, someone that's unemployed and he gets a real estate license. He's basically a self-contractor under a firm, and he's going to start his real estate business.
Right.
Thank you.
The question I have, under unemployment, the way that works is you're the employer that lets you go or whatever, and, they're paying that unemployment tax. So who does this come off of? I mean, who pays this? Does this come out of a general fund?
No, it comes out of the current trust fund, the current UI trust fund. There was a question about that this summer. Currently, right now, 47.3% of individuals who are getting UI benefits exhaust those UI benefits. So we also have to track who those individuals might be according to the current standards that we get down from the federal government. And so the idea is that although it would still be on the employer who let the person go and is paying into the UI system, the trust fund, almost half the time, those individuals are already exhausting their benefits for 26 weeks.
Yeah, your bossy.
All right, so let me get this straight. The guy that was his employer laid him off because he was the business was in hard times. And he's got to pay for this guy to then somehow or another open up a new business, potentially.
Yes, that's how the program would work, and the problem is...
Okay, so a lot of times people on employment contracts, it says that they can't compete and whatnot.
Right.
But let's assume for a second that you got a guy who doesn't have that. So I'm gonna give a business who's on hard times, a current business that's paying taxes, that's on hard times, that's laying people off. I'm going to put another person out there and give him competition and pay for it. He's got to pay for his competition because you got to assume that the guy was trained by his original employer, right? To do.
No, I'm not assuming that at all. That's
well,
a really wild assumption.
Assuming he goes into another occupation, you're right. Maybe that wouldn't be such a horrible thing. But what if he decides to stay in the occupation that he's been in for a long time?
My intention.
He's going to be. I know what your intention is, but wouldn't you be forcing the employer to be paying for his competition?
Not necessarily, no. I'm accepting the posse hypothetical.
Not necessarily.
And so, but not necessarily yes, but not necessarily no.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Delegate Rust.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Lopez, I see a fiscal impact statement. At least I think I do, to make sure. Yeah. And it says you need a budget amendment. Is such a budget amendment filed? And then secondly, I'll be very candid, I'm not sure I understand the paragraph 11, the other comments on the fiscal impact statement, if you could help me with that.
Right, this is the permanent program for if it was not limited and capped to 100 people across the state. This is if, under the original program that was passed in 2012 at the federal level, the program was providing the states who were availing themselves of the program up to $650,000 to implement and kick off the program. We didn't do that by 2012 of June of 2012. So that's what the cost would be over time. But I argue that creating new businesses, creating new jobs, availing ourselves of this program, actually over time, it pays for itself because of the added economic development as well as taxes that come into the state.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. Well, is there a budget amendment filed?
I'd have to get back on that. I don't believe I did do a budget amendment. So I just got the impact statement recently.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I was going off, just to answer your fuller question, I was going off of what the VEC had told us last year.
Doug Fowler.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we lay this on the table.
Second.
All in favor? All right, motion to be made is to lay on the table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Opposed? Ayes have it. Those raise your hands if you get it. 5. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Delegate Breyer. Yes, House Bill 1176, I think I have them on my notes for the substitute.